Imagine being invited to a feast by the people who just overthrew your family. Every surviving member of your dynasty is there. Then the doors close and the killing begins. One prince wasn't at that table. He had the foresight not to attend. His escape would split the Islamic world in two and create one of the most dazzling civilizations in human history. In 750 CE, the Abbasid family overthrew the Umayyad dynasty that had ruled the Islamic world for nearly a century. To eliminate any future rivals, the Abbasids invited the surviving Umayyad princes to a banquet of reconciliation. It was a trap. The guests were massacred, but one prince, al-Rahman, never walked through those doors. He'd sensed what was coming. So where did he go? As far from Baghdad as the Muslim world would allow. Abd al-Rahman fled west, 3,000 miles across North Africa to the Iberian Peninsula, to a land the Arabs called Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. At that distance, Baghdad's authority was theoretical at best. In 756, Abd al-Rahman was acclaimed as emir of Al-Andalus. An emir, a title more like governor or commander than king. It acknowledged someone else was in charge, at least in theory. In practice, he answered to no one. This was the first independent Islamic kingdom to break from the Caliphate. For nearly 2 centuries, the Umayyads of Spain maintained this polite fiction, calling themselves emirs, not caliphs. Then, in 929, as Abbasid power crumbled, the Umayyad ruler Abd al-Rahman III made a bold move. He declared himself Caliph of Cordoba, the supreme religious and political leader of all Muslims. Now there were 2 caliphates, and the idea of a single unified Islamic world was shattered. But what was life like in this rival caliphate? The answer might surprise you, because Cordoba didn't just compete with Baghdad, it surpassed it. As the Abbasid world faded, Cordoba entered its golden age. Look at the timeline. Abbasid peak power ran from roughly 750 to 910. Cordoba's flourishing ran from about 850 to 109. There's an overlap and then a handoff. By the mid-900s, Cordoba was the most cultivated city in the Islamic world. Its libraries held hundreds of thousands of volumes. Its architecture stunned visitors from across Europe and the Middle East. The fragment had outshone the whole. A breakaway province had become the cultural center. Now, here's the story that reveals the most about this civilization. Around 850, a group of zealous Christians in Cordoba had a problem, but it wasn't persecution. Their problem was the opposite. Their fellow Christians were perfectly happy under Islamic rule. They practiced their faith freely. They lived comfortably. Churches stood alongside mosques. These zealots couldn't rally support for resistance because there was nothing to resist. So they manufactured a crisis. They went to the marketplace and publicly denounced Muhammad as a charlatan. And this was the one line Islamic authorities could not allow anyone to cross. The zealots were arrested, told to recant, refused, and were executed. About 50 such martyrs are recorded. This splendid civilization ended abruptly. In 2009, civil war, fitna, internal strife tore Al-Andalus apart. The Caliphate fragmented into dozens of small competing kingdoms called taifas. A century and a half of brilliance gone in a single generation. Brilliance is fragile. Step back and see the pattern. Empires fracture, and the fragments can outshine the original. The periphery becomes the center. Rome falls. Byzantium endures for another 1,000 years. The British Empire declines. America rises. The Abbasids destroy the Umayyads. The lone survivor builds something more splendid than what tried to kill him. The assumption that breakaway states are always weaker. History demolishes it repeatedly. And rethink religious coexistence. The Cordoba example shows that peaceful coexistence was often the norm, not the exception. The historical record of persecution can be distorted by the very zealots who sought it out. The next time someone tells you about religious persecution in the medieval world, ask who's telling the story, the contented majority, or the 50 people who went looking for trouble.